Hey guys, it's Ellen Brock, novel editor. Today I'm going to talk about proactive scenes. So we're going to look at proactive scenes from 3 different novels, and then on Friday we're going to look at reactive scenes from these same novels, so you can get a sense of how these types of scenes differ from each other and how they're structured. So proactive scenes are usually followed up with reactive scenes, but you might see multiple proactive scenes in a row, and there isn't necessarily going to be a clear distinction between different scenes. So you don't necessarily need to look for a scene break or a chapter break to see the transition between scenes. The scene will transition into another scene when there's a new goal, and then a new conflict and a new resolution. So today we're just going to be looking at this structure of goal, conflict, and resolution and how it plays out in published novels. In Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling, Malfoy, Harry's nemesis and bully, invites Harry to participate in a midnight duel. And Harry's goal in this scene is very simple. This was his big chance to beat Malfoy face to face. He couldn't miss it. So now we have the goal, and Harry's action is just to go and meet Malfoy. But Malfoy doesn't show up, so when Harry gets there, he realizes he's at risk for being caught by Filch, the caretaker. And then his goal transitions. So if you define a scene as a goal, conflict, and a resolution, here you'll see that the goal has changed. Harry, instead of wanting to meet Malfoy, because that's obviously not going to happen because Malfoy didn't show up, Harry's new goal is to get back to the common room without getting caught by Filch. So this new scene also has a new conflict, and that's Peeves, the poltergeist, who shouts to let Filch know that the kids are out of bed. So the kids are able to run away and escape, so they do succeed in getting away from Filch, which is a positive outcome to the scene, but then they're confronted with another problem. They were looking straight into the eyes of a monstrous dog, a dog which filled the whole space between ceiling and floor. It had 3 heads. So this scene has a positive outcome. The kids are able to escape and get away from the 3-headed dog and get back to their common room. And this is a really good example of how you can have multiple proactive scenes back to back without the need for a section break or a new chapter. Now let's take a look at this scene where there's not really so much action, but rather conversation to move the plot forward. In Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer, the main character is Oscar, and he's struggling with the death of his father. And he finds a vase in his father's closet that has a scrap of paper that says black on it, as well as a key. And Oscar believes that this is a message that his father left for him, and he wants to decipher what it means. So he starts to investigate black, and his plan is to go to the craft store believing that he can get information there about what the color black means and why his father might have written it on a scrap of paper. So Oscar goes up to the desk at the craft store and talks to the woman working at the desk. I wanted to know what she could tell me about black, since she was probably an expert of color. Oscar's conflict in this scene isn't as obvious as a 3-headed dog or a poltergeist, but he still has a clear conflict. He wants to understand the meaning of this note, and he's seeking information about what this note means because he wants to understand his father. So we have the desire and we have the conflict, which is not understanding, and though it's not as overt or as big as a 3-headed dog, there is still a sense of conflict in the scene. So the woman who works at the desk takes him to look at the notepads where you can test out the pens, and she says, I don't know that it means anything, but look, when someone tests a pen, usually he either writes the name of the color he's writing with or his name. So the fact that black is written in red makes me think that black is someone's name. So the outcome of the scene is that Oscar learns that black probably refers to a name. This is a good example of how you don't need to have a big piece of action or some sort of physical conflict in order to write a proactive scene. Your characters can be proactive even within conversations. Let's look at a proactive scene that focuses even more on emotions. This scene is from The Thing About Jellyfish by Allie Benjamin. Susie and her best friend Franny start middle school, and at first things are going fine, but then Franny starts to get closer to other girls instead of spending as much time with Susie. Then one day you leave the lunch line, and I think you are walking toward our table, but you don't. Instead, you sit down at a table with other girls. We get Susie's reaction to Franny sitting with these other girls. Susie seems upset and she scowls, but her goal isn't outright stated, though we can definitely tell what her goal is based on the actions that she takes next. That night I tell my mom I want to start buying milk and a snack in the cafeteria. That way I can stand right next to you as you buy your milk. The next day, as soon as we both paid the lunch lady, I say, come on, and I pull you toward our regular table. So based on her actions, we can see that her goal is to get Franny to sit with her at the regular table and for things to be how they used to be. It doesn't need to be overtly stated that this is her goal because it's very clear based on the actions that she takes. So it can be helpful to keep in mind that you don't need to directly tell the reader what the character's goal is because often the context can make it clear enough. A few days later, Franny goes back to sit with the other girls again and invites Susie to sit with them. And Susie's goal changes slightly at this point, but again, it is not overtly stated what her goal is, but it's very clear from the context and from the actions that she takes. Molly is saying that during her hip-hop dance class, she wraps her legs and stomach in plastic wrap. This way, she sweats more. I think about the advice my mother has always given me, that it's important to ask other people lots of questions. So I ask, why would you want to sweat more anyway? We can tell from Susie's actions that she wants to connect with her friend Franny, even if it means sitting with these other girls and trying to make conversation with them. As this scene moves forward, Susie says all the wrong things trying to have a conversation with these girls, and ultimately the scene comes to a head when Susie uses an old nickname for Franny and embarrasses her in front of her friends. You stand, and just like that, the other girls stand too. Just before you stride away, you lean down to me, so close I can feel your heat. Your face is flushed red, your eyes are blazing. Why do you have to be so weird, Susie? You hiss. I have never seen you this angry, and I am confused, because all I did was offer you my fruit roll-up, which is something friends do. You're just so weird, you say. You turn away from me and storm out of the cafeteria. The other girls follow. This is a good example of a character failing in a scene. Susie does not achieve her goal of making things work out with Franny. In fact, she makes it worse, and it actually moves her farther away from her goal. So even though most of this scene takes place through conversation and these interpersonal interactions, it's still a proactive scene because the conflict is happening externally. She's in a fight with someone else. It's not an issue with herself. It's not a personal conundrum. It's not an issue happening in her own mind. While at first glance, scene structure can seem limiting or constricting to a writer, I hope this video helped you to see that it can actually present in a lot of different ways with physical action, action through conversation, and a lot of emotional content, even though the plot is still being moved forward, and even though the scene is not a reactive scene, but still a proactive scene. On Friday, I'm going to talk about reactive scenes and how they differ from proactive scenes. So if you are interested in seeing that video, subscribe so that you don't miss it. And I will be back Monday, Wednesday, Friday with new videos throughout August. And I'm hosting a free first page critique on my blog. If you want to check that out, the link is in the description. Happy writing, guys.